The factory in Nevada where the semi is about to be built is coming along real quick, but today we're not going to just look at the progress. We're going to talk about a few of the other elements surrounding the project. We're going to talk about the production guidelines, the production schedule, and the limiting factor. No, not Jordan Giesecke. We had him on last week. This week we are talking about the actual rate limiter for what the semi factory could do, and B, which means I am joined by Mark from the Tesla Life because he has been here for a bunch of these, and he's getting to know the factory pretty darn well. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. Mark, so good to have you back.
Thanks so much, Brian. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I did have a chance to hang out in the live chat on their show over at The Tesla Life every Wednesday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. They cover the news like nobody else, which is to say with me in the chat. So that's, right there, you're coming out ahead. It's a lot of fun. Patrick, Casey, and Mark do great work. And what episode are you up to now of your weekly news show?
393 we just completed.
Holy smokes, you guys. They've put in the hours. They've earned their stripes. Go show them. Go show them. Go show them some love. Hey, we're talking about this. You remember this place?
That's right, the iWest factory.
The iWest factory. A quick reminder, I'm giving this a thumbs up. I always do, but I unclick it so that I can re-click it when I get to this part of the show to remind you, you are also free to like my videos. It is a feature that we offer at no charge, liking. For that matter, you are also, we do have the 2-for-1 still going. You can subscribe to both of our channels at no cost. So that's great. So we're looking at this big old factory here, this viewer, Desi Doolin, who, if you've followed any of my videos or Joe Tegmeyer's videos, you recognize that name. Desi is a huge benefit to the community because Desi studies these factories as intensely as we do, and in some ways more intensively. So it is fantastic. Pointed out, this is about 1.5 million square feet, and that is just on the ground floor. There's, of course, mezzanines that will increase that footage. So it's quite a large factory.
Yeah, 1.5 million. That's a lot of tile counting.
It is a lot. That is a lot. We can see the roof the second layer going on. They do an initial layer, a insulating layer, and then a waterproof membrane over that. We can see that moving along nicely. Now, we don't show the video because if you want to see the video, go check out Zanegler. He does fantastic work. He's out there all the time. And I should point out, he also has bonus material that he puts up at least once or twice a week of other little things that he's caught that didn't make it into the main video. So worth checking him out. Please do that. Now we are seeing, so what we're going to talk about in a minute, but first we're going to look at the factory. What we're going to talk about in a minute is what the expectation is for production and the projected timeline. So here you can see the walls going up nicely. The stamping building is getting its footings in. And this is, you can see, last week we did not see this much progress. So even with the holidays having passed, this is still moving quite nicely. Stamping, I'd say these foundations will all be in and dried sufficiently, cured sufficiently within a month or two. I'm thinking end of Q1, this area will be ready for completion, and then they'll just put the walls up and you can see how quick it goes. One thing Zanegler pointed out is this shape. Does it look kind of familiar to you?
It certainly does. It looks like one of those Art Deco trains, which we've seen another one recently.
Yes, the people mover / toaster. So don't crank the heat up too high, and it's the former. And
the Rebovin.
Yeah, crank it to 250, 300. You got some nice toast going on. A lot of trenching going on. And you can see this gives you a good perspective on, you can see the concrete is done around the edge of the building, but not further in yet in this section. You can see the first layer of roof decking going on here compared to additional layers above that.
Notice the expansion joint, how wide that is. That's quite a lot of play in a roof membrane or something that's there to survive a contraction or a larger amount that's pushing further depending on the heat or cold.
Well, this is in the mountains. There shouldn't be earthquakes, but this is also built on fill dirt, which means the likelihood of some amount of settling is extremely high. You just have to mitigate it. And one way to do that is by not making the entire building twist by 3 inches if the building needs to move in one section.
Good point.
So other thing we've noticed here, here's the main factory. They're filling in this area. That's a lot of fill.
Yeah. Yes, and where are they getting it from? Like, they're not digging up on the other side of the factory. They got to be bringing this in. Well, I guess from the stamping operation, they dug a hole there, but I can't see this much.
This looks
from
like
there.
A pretty substantial amount. This looks like substantially more fill than they would have gotten from the excavation. But I'm sure if the answer is known, Desi will be in the comments to help us understand. And we can see the subtle change from this to this. Not a big deal. And here we can see inside there, they've got, the plastic is up, indicating they may be pouring behind it to keep out debris. And there you can see the plastic that they put down on top of the concrete while it's curing to trap the heat in so that it doesn't reach too low of a temperature while curing.
You mean that's not AstroTurf, Brian?
I had hoped that it was just yellow shag, but turns out it wasn't. Yeah, there you get a better idea. So this factory, so now we should talk about the timeline and the production volumes. I believe the official word is kind of middle of the year or second half of the year. My anticipation is that within the first half, we will see some production, and it will be largely ramped towards the end of the year, certainly not at the full volume. Do you know what the stated capacity is?
The overall stated capacity when it's up and running, I think it was in the area of 50,000 units a year.
Correct. Now, by the way, these racks you see on the roof are not for solar. These would be for like HVAC. These are for equipment. These are mechanical scaffolds. And why is there no solar on this? Because it ain't done. You got to finish the building before you can even think about that. That's something that would come later, hopefully. Yes, 50,000. So why only 50,000? This factory is so big. Surely it could make more than 50,000, don't you think?
I think Tesla always builds factories that could expand larger. What the issue is what's demand? What is a new product that Tesla is entering into, a new product category? What's it going to support for Tesla? And I think they've conservatively said 50,000. But I believe this could ramp higher, especially once it gets all done and their processes are ironed out.
All true. If you were to launch at 1 million a year, what happens if there's a recall and you need to do something big on 1 million vehicles instead of 50,000? That could be catastrophic. That could be very bad. The other factor is they do like to sandbag estimates these days. There's no need to overestimate and disappoint. It's better to underpromise and overdeliver. But why 50,000? Why that kind of a number? Do you think it's realistic? Do you think they could build next year 3 times that?
I don't think 3 times is the number they go beyond that, but I definitely think that they could do 50% on top of it. I think they could get maybe close to 100% if things are running really nice. But I think the 50,000 is based on looking at the actual market. They look at Peerbilt, they look at Mack, they look at Freightliner. They understand what the market is, what it can support, how many units are sold industry-wide in North America, and they're making the judgment based on that. And that 50,000 is where that number came from.
So I have a slightly different take on it, which is I've had a number of people say 50,000, that's not enough. Surely they could build more than that. And I would agree with you and them. I think the rate limiting factor is the batteries. Because if you're talking an 800-ish kilowatt hour pack, 50,000, that's 40 gigawatt hours of batteries. That's more than Giga Nevada currently produces as far as we're aware. So that would mean that they would need to dedicate all of Giga Nevada's production to this line just to hit 50,000, which is Not impossible. Not impossible. The 4680s in Texas were always meant to accommodate all vehicles made in Texas. There are also other factories coming online that make Tesla's 4680s. It's a Panasonic. It's a 3-tab instead of a tabless. You're not going to get the same high drain, immediate performance, but for a standard range plus or a rear wheel drive, it would still be sufficient. And they're also adding in the LFP equipment, which could take up some of the production for other vehicles, leaving these available for this project. But getting past 50,000, you're talking an amount of cells that was not manufactured worldwide in 2016. So I think that might be it. In terms of the scale of this place, it's easy to lose perspective from the air. This little orange dot is a person. That's a person walking around there. Yeah, you can see that's a whole bunch of, it's huge. These are probably 20, 30 feet tall footings. They go that deep into the ground. And it's primarily for isolation from vibration to the rest of the building. Someone I mentioned that pointed out, well, yes, but in Fremont, the stamping machine is just inside the building, and it is one of the largest, if not the largest, in North America. Correct. And I think they've learned that we need to isolate this from the rest of the building.
So, they found out that the whole building in Fremont is twisting, so now it's time to build them a little bit differently.
It is sufficiently large that when they first fired it up and operated it, they got a visit from the U.S. Geological Survey location just across the bay saying, hey, we're picking up tremors from your facility. Can we determine what this is so we can figure it all out? Yes, so I actually tried to dig into that data to see if it would help me understand production volume at Fremont, and it was not helpful. But that is the kind of thing that I do. So as you folks surely must know by now, I was not able to go to the Starship launch. It was delayed. The delay happened in a way that made it outside my window when I was going to be there, but I was committed. I was still going to go down, get all my interviews and all that, do a bunch of collabs with a bunch of amazing folks. And then the storm rolled in, my flights got changed, and I was able to cancel my tickets at no charge, get all my money back on that. Only lost $87 on the cancellation for the hotel room. Not too shabby. So that means my next visit somewhere will be, as far as we know, in March 29th and 30th, Chattanooga Charge, with all these great clubs showing up to show their support. They're all taking part in it. A bunch of speakers will be there, the usual suspects in many cases, but I know there's a handful that have already been talked to who will be there that they are not yet able to announce. It's very exciting. Diana, huge asset to the community, is helping put it all together. She's in charge of a lot of the elements of it, but there's some really great folks participating. It's going to be a great event. Join us, won't you? And when I say won't you, I think the answer to Mark is no, you're not joining us.
I'd love to, but no, I can't make that one.
That's a bit out there. So guys, in the comments, we welcome questions. We answer questions. It's something Mark and I uniquely do. We kind of went a little long, but who cares? We're going to share this. This is last week's video. The real reason behind Mexico's $100 million bet. I told you I was going to do a face. So this week, I think I'll go.
Wow.
There we go. So that'll be for next week. Tune in, won't you? Oh, and look, I didn't like my own video, but I have now. I don't know if that works. Does that work? Is that a thing you can do? Okay, now we've gotten to the questions. The epiphany to make an electric semi came when they were shipping the car batteries. They figured if they had a trailer full of batteries, why not use them to power their own transportation? Well, this isn't really a question, more of a comment. It's great. You know what? Thumbs up. So Tesla started with the idea of batteries in the trailer, and then they figured, well, just haul the whole thing itself. Okay. Instead of bringing in an eye-watering amount of fill, couldn't they blast, this is about Mexico, couldn't they blast the uphill side and use that to fill the downhill side, split the difference, some of each instead of one or the other? Do you know why they won't do that?
Well, blasting is incredibly expensive, one thing.
Yes.
And then of course it's not an exact science. You end up blasting a little bit too much and you're filling on both sides. So there's those two things. And also people don't like blasting going on as well. So although they're out in the middle of almost nowhere, I'm sure the neighbors wouldn't appreciate the blasting either.
Yes. And for blasting in that location, I imagine you would need to shut down the highway each time you did it because it would be within a stone's throw of the highway, quite literally. But the bigger reason is because there's ways to mitigate that. The bigger reason is this is not an ideal fill material. If you're going to be putting a factory on top of it, you want something that's uniform so it compacts nicely and predictably. You would bring in sand or just more traditional uh, inorganic dirt. Yeah. So it's yeah. If I did the calculations correctly, that's about 33,000 per acre. Lots of places in the US where you can get land at 2,000 per acre, especially in lots over 100 acres. Do you think the price is too high, too low, or just right?
I really don't know, to be honest. It's something that I am not familiar with. Price per acre. I just no. I'd be guessing. I really don't
Yes.
know.
So while it's true that you can get land cheaper, the question is where and how much. There is a sweet spot for cheap land, and it's probably about 5 acres is where you see some good price breaks. 5 to 20 is where I've seen it when I've helped clients look for land before. When you want a large contiguous piece of land near something of any value, it gets expensive. Giga Texas was about $100 million for 2,500 acres. That would seem pretty high considering you should be getting a bulk discount. And Tesla had to spend tens, hundreds of millions on site remediation before they could even build. Uh, those were all that site remediation, all the refilling of those ponds was supposed to be done by the original sand and gravel mine. They just never did it. So in that regard, and then of course Martin Marietta was dumping concrete into the waterway, which Tesla also had to grind up and remove. So there are. This is near an urban center. You have good access to employees. You
Yep.
have good access to shipping. That's what means the price will be higher. So is that the right price? I do not have an answer to that. I think that's a harder question, but this number does not strike me as insane. Why are so many people worried about Tesla semi-chargers for long distance? The release plan, 50,000 a year for a few years, they will not even put a dent in the local only semi business.
Well, that's an easy one to comment on because, of course, the companies that are lining up for the semi, they do different things besides just local. So you've got some that are regional deliveries, like PepsiCo, like the Frito-Lay, and you've got others that are going to be interested in doing just a one charge run. Somebody that's going to do, maybe 600 miles in a day, which is certainly doable, but you're going to have one charge along the way. So I can definitely see that there's many companies that definitely could use it locally. They could use it regionally, but Tesla wants to promote this to everyone. And they want to say, listen, now we've got some volume. We're going to put out 50,000 trucks a year. Let's open up our customer base too and get some other people excited that these vehicles can not only be a one stop, one charge, but they can go beyond that.
I think what CH Listens, if I said that right, is getting at is that it's not a big concern today. It's true that if we just sold to people doing PepsiCo style deliveries or very well known point to point deliveries, that we would have plenty of time for the market to catch up. And it's not something that I would even bother worrying about. Uh, yeah. So addressing this one here, rendering of the semi building doesn't show any solar panels. Wonder if the roof is not strong enough for them. Seems like a natural for New Mexico, Nevada. I knew what you meant. I think the roof is sufficiently strong to handle that. And, they put it on just regular warehouses. And I think this is more robust than a regular warehouse. Any thoughts on that?
Well, as you said, the roof's got to be finished before they start putting solar panels on it. So I'm sure there's a plan for it, but got to get the factory done first.
It is a valid data point that it didn't show up in the rendering, but this is stamping or casting. Tesla uses very high casting pressures. If they are stamping, let me know the part. I am curious. So it is not, we do not have any evidence that it will be for casting. This would be the size of casting you would need to make a semi-frame does not presently exist. I would estimate that it's off by double at least. So we don't have any evidence that they're looking to do castings for it. Which piece? All kinds of pieces. All kinds of pieces could be stamped. All the body panels could be stamped. Currently they're, I think, carbon fiber or plastic. I don't know if that's the plan to continue with that, but it could also be stamping for the elements of the frame if they wish to build the frame themselves. I don't know. We will find out. And we'll do one last one because we're getting a little long here. If I remember right, wasn't Giga Texas producing Model Ys before the building was finished? Unlike here, though, stamping was one of the first things done.
Parts of the building were complete before other parts of the building. So yeah, you had departments that were done and they were ready to start, putting the machines in and start their runs. The Texas factory is so large that it's sometimes you miss it that just having a corner done, that's not going to change anymore. You're already at a point where production can begin. You got a place for the raw material to come in, you got a place for the vehicles to go out, and you've got all the stuff in the middle for the production line. So it's because of its size. Yeah, they were able to start when other parts of the building weren't done.
And this is true of every car factory that Tesla makes. If you look at Giga Shanghai, when they first entered operation, only about 10% of the parts in that car were Chinese. The rest were shipped in from suppliers and from Tesla in Fremont. And as they completed each element within the building, they could stop taking deliveries of those products and use them locally instead. And Texas it is mind-bogglingly big. If you, the only part of the inside of the factory I've seen is the entryway and final assembly for the Model Y. And that room is so large, you would think, wow, I must be seeing a substantial percentage of the factory. My friend, you were only seeing one floor. That giant roof up there, there's a whole other floor just as big above it. And what you're seeing is realistically 2-3% of the factory. It's the scale is mind-boggling. The idea of finishing a gigafactory is not the right notion. It's the incorrect notion because they're just never finished until they run out of land. Guys, what do we miss? What do we misunderstand? Leave it in them comments. We might just answer them. We'll try. Everybody else, like, subscribe, and stay tuned and juicy. I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots at the Chattanooga Charge in March.